My wife dragged me to the company party to impress her new boss. Stay in the back. Don't embarrass me, she hissed. When the guest of honor arrived, she ignored my wife completely, walked straight to me and said, I've been trying to find you for 28 years. Hey, Reddit. My wife told me to stay in the back and cover my hands at her company party because I'd embarrass her. What happened next? No one saw that coming. Name's Lucas, 45 male. I'd been married to Audrey for 18 years. That night, she had spent the entire drive from our house giving me a checklist of things I wasn't allowed to do. Don't mention welding. Don't talk about the shop. Don't shake hands too hard. Don't eat anything messy. Don't stand too close to the executives. The company was celebrating some big merger, and the woman who'd bankrolled the whole deal was supposed to show up. Audrey had been positioning herself for a VP promotion for 3 years, and apparently my existence was the only thing standing between her and corner office glory. I'd spent that morning underneath a chassis at the fabrication shop, running beads on a custom exhaust system for some rich guy's vintage Mustang. Came home smelling like metal shavings and burnt flux. Showered twice. Still got told I looked like I belonged at a tailgate party instead of a corporate event. The venue was one of those fancy downtown hotels. Crystal chandeliers. String quartet in the corner. People in fancy clothes standing around pretending to enjoy conversations they clearly hated. Audrey fit right in. She always did. The woman could flip between personalities faster than anyone I'd ever met. One second she was telling me to fix the fence because it made us look trashy. The next she was air-kissing some director and laughing at a joke that wasn't funny. Me? I found a spot near a marble column and parked myself there. She found me before the appetizers came out, grabbed my arm hard and pulled me toward the hallway near the restrooms. What are you doing? She hissed. Standing. It's this thing people do when there's nowhere to sit. You're slouching. You look bored. Yeah, weird. Can't imagine why. Her eyes dropped to my hands. The calluses. The burn scar across my left knuckles from a spatter incident back in '09. The permanently stained cuticles that no amount of scrubbing ever fully fixed. Seriously, Lucas, your hands look like you work in a garage. I work in a shop, closed though. She pulled a small tube from her purse. Some kind of hand cream that smelled like a department store had exploded. Just use this. Cover the worst of it. I looked at her for a long second. Then I put my hands in my pockets. I'm good. She looked at me like I'd suggested we rob the coat check. This is important to me. Yeah, I know. You've told me like 11 times since Tuesday. Something cold flashed across her face. Then she smoothed it over, and she was back to her fake smile. Stay in the back, she said. Don't embarrass me. I gave her a lazy salute and watched her click-clack back into the crowd. My phone buzzed. Text from my brother, Eli. How's prison? I typed back. The warden's making rounds. Send help or snacks. Hang in there. Remember, divorce is always an option. He wasn't wrong. He'd been saying that for 2 years. Ever since he came to visit and watched Audrey correct my grammar in front of her book club like I was a slow third grader. I pocketed the phone and went back to holding up the column. Counted the ceiling tiles. Watched Audrey work the room like a politician. Then the whole vibe changed. Heads turned. Conversations paused. The string quartet kept playing, but nobody was listening anymore. The guest of honor had arrived. She walked in like she owned the building, which technically she kinda did. Celia Ashford ran a manufacturing investment firm out of Chicago, comfortable enough to write checks that made corporate boards very interested in her opinions. She moved through the crowd shaking hands, but her eyes were scanning, searching. Audrey straightened up, smoothed her dress, stepped forward with her best, I'm approachable but also very important smile. Celia walked right past her, past the smile, past the carefully rehearsed introduction, past all of it, straight to me. I didn't even have time to take my hands out of my pockets before she was standing in front of me. Her eyes locked onto mine and stayed there. Lucas Holt. It wasn't a question. Last time I checked, I said. She reached out and took my hand. Not shook it. Took it. Her thumb brushed over the burn scar like she was confirming something. She let out a slow breath. Like something she'd been carrying for a long time had finally landed. I've been trying to find you for 28 years. Behind me, I heard a glass hit the floor. Think you might have the wrong guy, I said. I'm mostly known for being awkward at parties. She laughed. Same sense of humor. It's really you. Audrey appeared at my elbow like she'd been teleported there. Her voice was sweet on the surface, but absolutely lethal underneath. Mrs. Ashford, I don't think we've been properly introduced. I'm Audrey Holt. Lucas is my husband. Celia finally looked at her. I know who you are, she said. You're in accounting compliance, right? Lucas and I grew up together. Went to the same high school. Lost touch after his father got sick. She squeezed my hand once more, said we'd catch up soon, and disappeared into the crowd before Audrey could reload. My wife stared at me like I just revealed I had a second family. What was that? An old friend, apparently. You never mentioned you knew Celia Ashford. Didn't know she was Celia Ashford. Knew her as Celia Brennan. She was 2 years ahead of me. Lived 3 streets over. She used to help me with math homework. Audrey's jaw tightened. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to believe whatever you want. You usually do. Her eyes went flat. Go find something to do, and stay out of the way. I did, but something had cracked open. Something I'd closed off 20 years ago when life got complicated, and I stopped expecting anything good to happen. I watched Celia from across the room, while Audrey took the stage to deliver some prepared remarks about synergy and forward momentum. I watched her shake hands with people who actually seemed to interest her. And for the first time in a long time, I wondered if I'd been standing in the back because I belonged there, or because someone had convinced me I did. My brother called me the next morning at 6. I was already in the garage, getting ready to head to the shop. So let me get this straight, Eli said. Some rich lady walked across a fancy party, past your delightful wife, and basically announced she's been searching for you like you're a missing painting? That's one way to put it. And Audrey's reaction was to tell you to go stand in the corner? She told me to find something to do and stay out of the way. Eli was quiet for a second. Then he started laughing. Dude, that's the most satisfying thing I've heard in months. Please tell me you got her number. Whose? Celia's? No, the string quartet's. Yes, Celia's. I didn't get anyone's number. I stood by a column for 3 hours and then we drove home in silence. Classic. Very healthy relationship stuff happening there. I grabbed my lunch cooler from the fridge. She's just an old friend. We used to hang out when we were kids. Uh-huh. And she's been looking for you for 28 years because she wanted to return a library book? I didn't have an answer for that. Mostly because I'd been asking myself the same question since the party. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I was on lunch break, sitting in my truck outside the shop with a cold sandwich and a thermos of coffee. Lucas? Speaking. It's Celia. Hope this isn't weird. Bit late for that, don't you think? You made my wife drop a glass of something that probably cost $40. She laughed. I didn't mean to cause a scene. I just saw you standing there, and it was like the last 28 years just kind of collapsed all at once. We talked for 20 minutes. She explained how she'd tried to find me after she left for college. Letters, phone calls, even drove back to the old neighborhood once. Everything dead-ended. My mom had moved us twice after Dad died, and by the time Celia had resources to actually hire someone to dig, the trail was cold. I always felt guilty, she said. You were going through the worst time of your life, and I just disappeared. You didn't disappear. You went to college. That's what people do. I could have tried harder. Come on. You were 18. I was 17. We were kids. Silence. Then, you sound different. Calmer than I expected. 30 years of welding will do that. Hard to stay wound up when you're trying not to set yourself on fire. She suggested we meet for coffee. Catch up properly. I told her I'd think about it. Which meant I'd think about how to explain it to Audrey without starting World War III. Well, I didn't have to. When I got home that night, Audrey was sitting at the kitchen table with her mother, Zoe, which was never a good sign. Zoe looked at me the way she always did, like I was a stain she couldn't scrub out of an otherwise nice tablecloth. Lucas, Zoe said, we need to talk about your little friend. My little friend? Audrey slid a printout across the table. It was a screenshot of Celia's company website. Her bio, her net worth estimate, the works. She's worth $18 million, Audrey said. And she just happened to find you at my company party? Your company party? Right. Forgot I was just the plus one. Zoe leaned forward. Don't be cute. This woman shows up out of nowhere, makes a scene, and now suddenly she's calling your phone? It looks like you're trying to trade up. I stared at her. Then at Audrey. Then back at Zoe. First of all, she called me once to say hi. Second of all, I don't owe either of you an explanation for having a conversation with someone. Audrey's eyes went cold. You're being defensive. I'm being accurate. There's a difference. If you have nothing to hide, then why are you acting like this? Acting like what? Like a guy who's allowed to have a conversation? Zoe made a small noise of disapproval. This is exactly what I warned you about, Audrey. Blue-collar men don't understand how optics work. He's going to embarrass you. I grabbed my keys off the counter. I'm going to Eli's. You two have fun with your strategy meeting. Audrey stood up. You're seriously walking out right now? Yep. We're not done talking. We weren't talking. You were tag teaming me with your mother about a woman I haven't seen in 3 decades. That's an ambush. I left. Drove straight to Eli's apartment on the other side of town. It was a 2-bedroom place above a dry cleaner that always smelled vaguely of steam and industrial chemicals. He'd lived there for 6 years and showed no signs of leaving. He opened the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt that said, "I'm not lazy, I'm on energy-saving mode." His hair was sticking up on one side like he'd been napping on the couch. He took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Fridge is stocked. Couch is open. You want to tell me what happened or just sit here and decompress?" "Option B for now," he nodded. "Respect. I'll make sandwiches." Eli was 3 years younger than me, but somehow always seemed like the older brother. He'd been through his own divorce 4 years back. No kids, thankfully. He handled it the way he handled everything. Bad jokes and moving forward. We sat in silence for about 10 minutes. Him eating chips. Me staring at the wall. Finally, he said, "So she's into you, right?" "What?" "The rich lady, Celia. She's totally into you." "She's an old friend. We used to share homework." Eli smirked. That smirk that says he knows something I don't. "Yeah. And I'm the Pope." "Dude, cut the crap. Women don't look for men for 28 years because of homework. That's not how any of this works. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what I saw on your face when you told me about her. That wasn't, 'Oh, cool, an old friend.' That was, 'Oh no, the feelings are back.'" I didn't respond, but I thought about the way she'd held my hand at the party, the way her voice sounded on the phone, the way she'd laughed at my dumb joke about being bad at parties, the way she'd said, "When you're ready to complicate things, let me know." Eli leaned back and crossed his arms. "You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're about to tell me. You spent 18 years with a woman who made you feel small, and now someone's showing up who actually sees you. That's scary. I get it. But it's also a chance to change things." "A chance for what?" "To stop settling. To stop standing in the back. To stop letting people like Audrey and her nightmare mother treat you like you're lucky to be in their presence." I looked at him. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just divorced. It's like wisdom, but sadder." I almost laughed. He was right, though. About all of it. Then this happened. I didn't go looking for problems. Problems came looking for me in the form of a missing envelope. Every quarter, like clockwork, a thick statement used to show up in the mailbox. My 401k. The pension summary from when I worked at the plant before going independent. Boring paperwork that I never thought about much because it meant things were working the way they were supposed to. That envelope hadn't shown up in 8 months. At first, I told myself it was probably online now. Everything was online these days. My buddy at the shop, a guy named Russ who'd been welding since Carter was president, said his wife had switched all their stuff to digital delivery. "Saves paper," he'd said. "Also means I never know what's happening with my money. But hey, trees." Audrey always handled the finances. It made sense at first. She had the business degree. She understood spreadsheets and tax brackets and all that stuff that made my eyes glaze over. I understood steel and argon and the specific temperature at which things stop being metal and start being problems. Division of labor, right? Except now I was starting to notice things. The way she changed the subject when I asked about our savings. The way she'd taken over the mailbox key 3 years ago because she didn't want important documents getting lost. The way my login to our bank account suddenly stopped working last spring. "Probably a security update," she'd said. "I'll fix it." She never fixed it. I called the pension administrator from my truck during lunch. Sat in the parking lot of a sandwich shop with the engine off and the windows cracked. Nice lady on the phone. Asked a few questions, typed for a while, then went quiet for a minute. "Mr. Holt, your mailing address was changed about 9 months ago." "Changed to what?" "A P.O. box, here in town." "I didn't authorize that." "According to our records, your wife did. She has power of attorney on the account." I sat there with my sandwich going cold in my hand. Power of attorney. I remembered signing something last year. A stack of papers Audrey said were insurance updates. Routine stuff. I'd signed where she pointed because I trusted her. Because that's what you do when you've been married to someone for 18 years. Except apparently that's also how you get robbed without knowing it. That night I tried to bring it up casually. Audrey was at the kitchen island, scrolling through her tablet, while her mother sat in the living room watching some reality show. "Hey, I called the pension office today. They said you changed the mailing address." Audrey didn't look up. The old address was getting junk mail mixed in. I streamlined it. "To a P.O. box I don't have access to?" "You'd lose the key. You lose everything." I let that sit for a second. "They also said you have power of attorney." Now she looked up. Something flickered across her face. "We went over this. It's easier for tax purposes. We went over insurance forms. You didn't mention taking legal control over my retirement accounts. Zoe's voice floated in from the living room. Don't be dramatic, Lucas. Audrey's the financial mind in this house. She's just protecting your interests. My interests? Right. Funny how protecting my interests means I don't get to see my own money. Audrey set her tablet down. What exactly are you accusing me of? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking questions. You're questioning my judgment, my integrity, in front of my mother. Your mother invited herself into the conversation. Zoe appeared in the doorway. I'm trying to help. Someone has to keep this family functioning. This family was functioning fine before you started showing up every weekend to tell me my lawn looks like garbage. Audrey stood up. That's enough. You're being paranoid and you're being rude. I'm going to bed. Show me the statements first. Excuse me? Show me the statements. If everything's fine, show me. Log in right now. Let me see the numbers. She stared at me. I stared back. Finally, she said, I don't have to prove anything to you. She walked upstairs. Zoe followed, shooting me a look that could have curdled milk. I stood in the kitchen for a long time. Then I grabbed my phone and called Eli. You were right, I said when he picked up. About what? Something's wrong, and I need to find out how wrong. Celia met me at a pancake house off Route 47. She showed up in jeans and a plain sweater. No makeup, looking nothing like the polished executive from the party. She slid into the booth across from me and ordered coffee. Thanks for meeting me, I said. I know this is weird. You called and said you needed help. That's not weird. That's what friends do. I laid it out for her. The missing statements. The address change. The power of attorney I didn't remember authorizing. The way Audrey kept dodging every question. Celia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pulled a card from her purse and slid it across the table. This is a guy I've used before. Forensic accountant. He's discreet, thorough. Tell him I sent you. I appreciate it. I don't even know what I'm looking for. Answers. That's what you're looking for. Whether the answer is good or bad, you need to know what's actually happening with your money. I pocketed the card. Can I ask you something? Always. Why did you really look for me all those years? She was quiet for a moment, stirred her coffee even though she hadn't added anything to it. Because you were the only person who was ever honest with me. When I was 17 and full of myself, you told me I was being a jerk to my little sister. When my dad died the year after yours, you showed up at the funeral, even though we hadn't talked in months. She looked up at me. People like me spend a lot of time surrounded by people who want something. You never wanted anything. You just showed up. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the only thing I could think of. I wanted something. I just never told you. She smiled. A soft, sad smile. I know. I was too scared to ask. We sat there for a while, not talking. Just being two people who'd lost 28 years to timing and life getting in the way. Finally, I said, I should probably figure out if my wife is robbing me before I make things more complicated. Celia laughed. Probably smart. But Lucas? Yeah? When you're ready to complicate things, let me know. The forensic accountant was a guy named Stanley, mid-60s. The kind of face that says he's seen enough shady math to be permanently disappointed in people. We met at his office. It was a small space above a print shop, packed with filing cabinets and stacks of paper that looked like they'd been there since the Reagan administration. I brought him everything I'd managed to get. Copies of statements I'd requested directly from the institutions. Email confirmations I'd printed at the library. Bank records that had come in certified mail to Eli's address because I couldn't trust my own mailbox anymore. 3 hours and 4 cups of terrible coffee later, he had a timeline. He laid it out on a piece of paper, each item connected by hand-drawn arrows. Over the past 2 years, Audrey had changed the beneficiary on my 401k from me to her mother. Not gradually. All at once. 8 months ago, right around the time the statement stopped showing up, she'd taken out a home equity line I didn't know existed for $32,000. Signed my name on the application, or close enough to my name that the bank didn't question it. She'd moved $15,000 from our joint savings into a personal account at a bank in the next county, a bank I'd never heard of. She'd been adjusting my contribution percentages without telling me, pulling money out before it even hit the retirement fund, skimming the top, basically. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. Nothing that would trigger an alert. Everything designed to look normal if you weren't paying attention. Total exposure, Stanley said, sliding a paper across the desk. Roughly $67,000. Could be more depending on what else she's got hidden. I stared at the number. $67,000. That was 6 years of savings. That was every overtime shift I'd worked since 2019. That was the vacation we never took because we needed to be responsible. That was the new truck I didn't buy because we couldn't afford it right now. What do I do with this? He leaned back in his chair. That's up to you. But I'd say don't tip her off until you've got everything lined up. She's been careful, patient. This is a plan. Probably been working on it for 3, maybe 4 years if I had to guess. Why would she do this? He shrugged. Exit strategy. Could be a lot of reasons. Maybe she's planning to leave. Maybe she's got debts you don't know about. Maybe she just likes being in control. Either way, you're the one getting cleaned out, and she's the one holding the mop. I called Eli on the way home, sat in my truck outside the dry cleaner beneath his apartment, and told him everything. Oh man, he said. She's been planning this for years. Looks like it. What are you going to do? I'm going to wait. Gather more. And when the time is right, I'm going to make sure she can't spin this into something else. For the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost in my own house. I smiled at dinner, nodded at Audrey's stories about office drama, laughed at her jokes, let Zoe insult my job, my clothes, my truck, my lack of ambition. Every time she opened her mouth, I just nodded and said, "You're probably right." It drove them both crazy. They weren't used to me not fighting back. They kept poking, waiting for me to snap, and I just kept smiling. Meanwhile, I collected. Every day I gathered more documentation, more statements, more emails, a paper trail that got thicker by the hour. I started keeping a log, dates and times when Audrey said things that didn't add up, conversations where she contradicted herself, little lies that I would have ignored before, but now stood out clear as day. And every night I texted Celia, just updates, checking in, asking for advice. Two people who'd found each other again at the worst possible time, trying to figure out how to move forward. "You're being really patient," she wrote one night. "Welding taught me that. Heat things up too fast, the whole thing falls apart. You gotta let the metal reach the right temperature before you make your move. And when you're ready, then I turn up the heat." 3 days before the company dinner, Eli came over to help me put together the presentation. We sat at his kitchen table with my laptop and a stack of printed documents. "You sure about this?" he asked. "This is going to blow up her whole life. She blew up mine first." He nodded slowly. "Fair. You want me there?" "Yeah, I want a witness. And I want someone who can keep me from doing something stupid." He grinned. "Can't promise that second part, but I'll definitely be there for the first one." The invitation arrived on a Monday. Annual leadership dinner. Audrey was getting some kind of recognition award for her work on the merger integration. Her name was printed in gold script next to words like integrity and corporate excellence. The irony was thick enough to choke on. She told me I didn't need to come. Said it was mostly a work thing. Spouses were optional. I told her I'd be there anyway. The argument lasted 15 minutes. She tried every angle. "You'll be bored. You won't know anyone. You hate these things. Your hands look terrible right now. My mother thinks you should stay home." I just nodded at each one and said I'd be there anyway. Eventually, she stopped arguing and switched to damage control. "If you're coming, at least wear something presentable. Not those boots. And don't make jokes that only you think are funny." "Got it," Eli texted me that night. "You sure about this? Positive? Need me there?" "Actually, yeah. You still have that suit from Uncle Rick's wedding? The one that makes me look like a mob accountant? That's the one. I'll iron it." The night of the dinner, I showed up in a clean jacket and my good boots. Eli was waiting for me in the lobby, looking exactly like a mob accountant. Navy suit, slicked back hair, a smile that said he knew where the bodies were buried. "You ready for this?" he asked. "Been ready for 2 weeks." The ballroom was packed. Executives, board members, people whose job titles had more words than a fast food menu. Glass flutes everywhere. Audrey was at the front, working the room, shaking hands like she was running for Senate. Her mother was there too, hovering near the appetizer table. Audrey saw me and her face tightened. Then she saw Eli, and it tightened even more. "What is he doing here?" "Moral support," I said. "You have your mother. I have my brother. Your brother isn't appropriate for this event." Eli raised his hand. "I can hear you. Also, I brought a gift for the honoree." He held up a small wrapped box. "It's a desk calendar. Very professional. I even wrote, 'Congratulations on your award' on the card." Audrey looked like she wanted to set him on fire. But someone called her name, and she had to switch back into performance mode. Eli leaned over. "She looks stressed. She should be. You give me the signal. I'll get things started." "Not yet. Let her have her moment first." The program started. Speeches about leadership. Speeches about innovation. Speeches about the company's commitment to ethical excellence. The CEO thanked everyone for their hard work. Then they called Audrey's name. She walked to the stage. Confident. Polished. She took the microphone and delivered a speech about accountability and transparency that would have been inspiring if I didn't know what I knew. True leadership, she said, means having the courage to do the right thing even when no one is watching. Eli snorted. I elbowed him. It means being honest with yourself and with others. It means building trust through action, not just words. I nodded at Eli. He stood up, walked to the AV table like he belonged there, handed the tech a USB drive. The tech shrugged and plugged it in. The screen behind Audrey flickered. A spreadsheet appeared. Bank transfers. Dates. Amounts. Her name. Her mother's name as beneficiary on accounts she had no business being on. The room went dead silent. Audrey turned around, stared at the screen. Her face went white. What? She started. What is this? Someone asked from the front table. A board member. I stood up, slowly. Every head in the room turned toward me. That, I said, is a summary of unauthorized financial changes made to accounts in my name over the past 2 years. Power of attorney obtained without informed consent. Beneficiary changes I never approved. Fund transfers I never authorized. Audrey's voice came out strangled. Lucas, what are you doing? I'm being transparent. You love that word, right? Transparency? Figured I'd give you some. From across the room, Zoe stood up. Her face was bright red. This is outrageous. This is a private matter. You can't do this here. Actually, I can. Half of what's on that screen involves company benefit programs, which makes it a compliance issue, which makes it very much appropriate for a corporate event. A board member stood up. Mrs. Holt, is this accurate? Audrey was still staring at the screen. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. This is being taken out of context, she finally said. My husband is confused. He doesn't understand financial matters. I understand them well enough to hire a forensic accountant. I understand them well enough to know that $67,000 doesn't just disappear. The room erupted. Murmurs. Phones coming out. Someone from legal pulling Audrey aside. Zoe trying to push her way through the crowd to reach her daughter. Eli appeared at my elbow. The spreadsheet was a good touch. Celia's idea. She said visuals help. Smart woman. We walked out together while Audrey tried to do damage control. Her award sat on the table, untouched. Her career sat in pieces on the floor. Outside, I stood by my truck and breathed. My phone buzzed. Celia. Heard it went well. Depends on your definition. My marriage is over and my wife is probably going to be unemployed by Monday. And how do you feel? Lighter. The next 3 months were a controlled demolition. Audrey lost her job within 2 weeks. Corporate fraud investigations don't care about your performance reviews or your networking skills or how many people liked your LinkedIn posts. When the numbers don't add up, the numbers don't add up. Zoe tried to spin it every way she could. First, it was a misunderstanding. Then it was my fault for being a difficult husband. Then it was the company's fault for overreacting. Then it was everyone's fault except Audrey's. She showed up once, about 3 weeks after the dinner, to pick up some of Audrey's things. I was in the garage packing boxes. She walked in without knocking, looked around, and then turned to me. I hope you're satisfied, she said. You've destroyed my daughter's career. Everything she worked for. She destroyed it herself. You could have handled this privately. You mean where she could control the story? Spin it until somehow I was the bad guy? No thanks. Zoe's lip curled. You were always beneath her. Everyone saw it. My daughter married a welder who couldn't even manage to be grateful. Grateful for what? For being robbed? For being lied to? Zoe left without another word. I finished packing. Felt good. Like cleaning out a wound. The divorce was straightforward. Paperwork. Signatures. The house went on the market. I moved into an apartment across town. Small. Quiet. Mine. The money came back. Most of it. The forensic accountant had done his job well enough that there was a clear record of what had been taken and where it went. Some things were harder to unwind than others, but in the end, I came out with about 52,000 of the 67 I'd lost. Not bad. Not great. But enough to feel like I hadn't been completely flattened. Eli helped me move. Carried boxes. Told me I looked almost human now that I wasn't living under Audrey's thumb. You're way too calm about all this, he said, dropping a box labeled kitchen stuff onto my new counter. What's the alternative? Fall apart? He nodded. Fair. So when are you asking out the rich lady? We're taking it slow. Eli snorted. You've been taking it slow for 28 years. At some point, you gotta actually make a move. He wasn't wrong. Celia and I had been circling each other for months. 3 weeks after the divorce was final, I asked her to dinner. Not a let me update you on my divorce dinner. This is a date, and we both know it dinner. She said yes. Immediately, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. We went to a nice place downtown. Celia wore a green dress. Simple. Elegant. No jewelry except a small necklace I recognized from high school. A little silver chain with a pendant shaped like a compass. I'd given it to her for her 18th birthday. She'd kept it for 28 years. You still have that, I said when she sat down. She touched it, smiled. I never got rid of it. Felt like bad luck to throw it out, or good luck to keep it. Maybe both. We talked. Not about money or revenge or Audrey or any of the garbage that had taken over the last few months. We talked about our fathers, about the neighborhood, about what we wanted out of whatever time we had left. Halfway through the main course, she reached across the table and took my hand. You know, she said, I used to imagine what this would be like, back when we were kids, before everything got complicated. Eating overpriced pasta in a dimly lit restaurant? She laughed. Being with you, without all the noise, without the timing being all wrong. The timing was really wrong. It's better now. Yeah, it is. We finished dinner, ordered dessert, shared a piece of tiramisu that was better than either of us expected. I paid the bill. We walked outside. The night was cool, clear, with that early spring feeling where everything seems possible. And then a car screeched into the parking lot. Audrey. She stumbled out of the driver's seat, looking like she'd been crying for hours. Her hair was a mess. Her mascara was running. She pointed at us like we'd personally burned down her house. You, she said, voice shaking. You destroyed everything. I stepped slightly in front of Celia. Audrey, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? What are you doing here, with her? The ink isn't even dry on the divorce papers. The papers have been dry for 3 weeks, and you're making a scene. You humiliated me in front of everyone I've ever worked with. I lost my job, my reputation. My mother won't even look at me because she's so ashamed. Celia stepped forward. You did that to yourself when you stole from him. Audrey's eyes went wide. Don't you talk to me. You think you can just swoop in and take what's mine? He was never yours. You just held the paperwork. For a second, I thought Audrey was going to swing. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was vibrating with rage. This was the Audrey I'd always suspected existed underneath the corporate polish. You think this is over? She hissed. You think you can just walk away and start a new life with your little high school girlfriend? I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Celia stepped back quietly. I saw her catch the eye of one of the waiters who'd come outside for a smoke break. She said something low, gestured toward Audrey. The waiter nodded and went back inside. 30 seconds later, the restaurant manager appeared with a guy in a black polo who looked like he bench-pressed cars for fun. Private security. Ma'am, the manager said, voice calm. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disturbing our guests. Audrey whipped around. I'm not disturbing anyone. I'm having a conversation with my husband. Ex-husband, I said. And you're screaming in a parking lot. That's not a conversation. The security guy took a step forward. Not aggressive. Just there. Ma'am, this is private property. You need to leave, or we call the police. Her face went pale. She looked around like she was just now realizing where she was. This isn't over, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. It really is, I said. Go home, Audrey. Figure out your life, but do it away from me. She stood there for a second. Then she got back in her car, slammed the door, peeled out of the lot fast enough to leave tire marks on the asphalt. Celia turned to me. So, that was eventful. Welcome to my life, she smiled. I think I can handle it. Some people spend their whole lives trying to impress a room, standing in the back because someone told them to. I spent 30 years in the back. Never again. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.